அன்னமயமென்னும் கோஷம் தனிலே அந்தணர் முதல் புலையர் வரைக்கும் பின்னமரவே தோணுதே அன்றி பேதம் காணேன். அன்னமயமென்னும் கோஷம் தனிலே அந்தணர் முதல் புலையர் வரைக்கும் பின்னமரவே தோணுதே அன்றி பேதம் ஒன்றும் காணேன். தன்னை அறிகின்ற தவமே பெரிதென்று தரணியில் கோபால கிருஷ்ணா சொன்னரெல்லாம் மறமையான சொன்னதெல்லாம் மறமையான மாய சுழலிலே விழுந்ததலை நடை சிவ சிவா.
Hello and welcome back to Raaga Rasika. This is a podcast program that explores the world of Carnatic music. Joining us from Albany, New York is Vidya Subramanian. In the last episode, Vidya and I were discussing a composition by Sri Uthukadu Venkatakavi called Alaavadennaalo. As we mentioned in the last segment, this is a song about Lord Shiva and very specifically the 63 Nayanar saints in the Shaivite tradition. Vidya spent some time talking about the Pallavi and Anupallavi segments of the composition, as well as their meanings, the musical structure, and so on. Vidya, let's now move on to the next segment or segments of this song called Charanam. Let's first discuss the lyrics and the meaning of the Charanam, and then discuss the musical aspects of the Charanam.
In the Charanam, he says he wants to be freed of rebirth. But if he were to be reborn, he wants to be like one of the great people that he mentions in the Charanams or segments that succeed the opening line. So let me first sing the opening line of the Charanam. உண்மை பிறவி போக வேணும் எடுத்தால் புண்ணிய பிறவிகளாக வேணும் என்னவரில் ஒருவரே போலே. Sri Uthukadu Venkatakavi says if he were to be reborn, he wants to be like one of the great souls that he mentions. And very beautifully and imaginatively, he has woven the names of the 63 Nayanars into the different charanams of this composition. And again, there are other interesting facets to it as well. This composition has been set to an 8-beat tala cycle that is popularly known as the Adi Talam. So to help some of our listeners understand how this goes, I'm going to sing the opening line or the Pallavi line again, and you can see how the entire line spans over 8 beats. Alaavadennaalo Shivame. So this entire line of lyric spans over 8 beats of rhythm, and that is really considered to be one tala cycle as far as this song is concerned. And coming specifically to the third segment of this composition, that is called the Charanam, the composer has very masterfully brought out his rhythmic expertise by employing a number of different edupus. Before we get into that, let me first define the term edupu. Edupu is basically the relative point in the rhythmic cycle in which the lyric begins. So we don't necessarily have the lyric and the rhythm beginning at the same point in every composition, and within a composition itself there could be certain lines in which the lyrics and the rhythmic cycle coincide, and there could be other lines where the lyric begins before the beginning of the rhythmic cycle and vice versa. in this composition we find outstanding illustrations of all of three possible kinds of eduppu. The first being the Sama eduppu, where the Tala cycle coincides with the lyric. The second one being the Anahata eduppu, where the Tala cycle begins first, followed by the lyric. And the third one being the Atita eduppu, where the lyric begins towards the end of the previous Tala cycle. And let me sing now to illustrate the Sama eduppu, which occurs in the very first line of the Charanam. Unmai piravi poga venum, unmai piravi poga venum, eduttal unniya piravigal aaga venum. Then moving on to the next line, in which Sri Uthukade Venkatakavi says that if he were to be reborn, he wants to be like one of the great souls, and he mentions very beautifully the names of the 63 Shaivite Nayanars. And this particular line that I'm going to sing is an example of the Anahata eduppu, where the lyric begins after the Tala cycle has started. Innavaril oruvare pole, இன்னவரில் ஒருவரே போலே, இன்னவரில் ஒருவரே போலே. Now I'll illustrate the third category of eduppu, being the Atita eduppu, and this occurs in the very next line. And I would like to illustrate by first doing a blank Tala cycle, and towards the end you can notice how I begin the music before we move on to the fresh Tala cycle. So as I had mentioned earlier, we have 8 beats in one cycle in this particular composition. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Pa pada pada, pama pada pada, gama pada pada, pada ni da pada da pama gama innavaril. In order to make it clearer, I'm going to sing the lyric that is corresponding to the swaras or notes that I just sang. And again, you can see how the lyrics commence just after the 8th beat of the rhythmic cycle, but before the beginning of the new cycle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sirgari manam Shiva pada magan Tirunavarasan Manivachaka Sundaranum innavaril oruvare pole.
Vidya, that's really amazing. Are there other things in this composition that you'd like to highlight that are interesting?
Definitely. When we look at the names of the 63 Nayanars, again, there is such a variety in the number of syllables in each of the names, and to incorporate all these names one after the other in itself is an outstanding achievement. And to illustrate that, I'm going to sing the third charanam, in which he mentions a number of Nayanar saints, and towards the end of the third charanam he uses the word Tirunalai Povar, and this I believe is a less known name for the popular Nayanar saint Nandanar. Magarisa Nidapada Mapada Maga Magarisa Magamapa Gamapa Magamada Pada Padani Dani Sasani Dadani Sarisa Nidani Dabama Innavaril Oruvare Pole. ஐயடிகள் காடவர் பொன்னாயகனம் புல்ல நின்றசி நெடுமாற கணநாத முனையாடுவாரோடு திருநாளை போவாரெனும் இன்னவரில் ஒருவரே போலே.
So Vidya, I have noticed something as you were singing these, which is before you actually introduce the lyric itself, you typically start off by singing the notes or the swarams. Why do you do that? Is there something more to it?
That's an excellent question, Devesh. Some of you might be familiar with the popular Pancharatna Kritis of Saint Tyagaraja. They are also known as the Pancharatna Kritis that are sung in the town of Tiruvayar in the state of Tamil Nadu. And the conventional format in which these Kritis are sung is that they have numerous charanams which are rendered in fast speed, and before each charanam's lyric is rendered, the musicians perform the corresponding swarams for those lyrics before they sing the sahityam or lyrics. And for Utukadu Venkatakavi Saptaratna Kritis, we follow the same convention where we sing the swarams for every charanam before we render the lyrics.
Interesting, Vidya. Why don't we continue on our exploration of this composition further?
Sure. I would like to once again provide another outstanding illustration of rhythmic expertise in the fifth charanam of this composition. And let me first sing the entire charanam. Dada pa ma ga re sa ni sa ga ma pa ma ga ma da da pa ma ga pa ma ga ma da pa ga ma pa da ni da pa ma ga re sa ni sa ga ma pa da pa ga da ni sa ga re sa ni da ni sa ga ma ga re sa ga re sa ni da ni sa ni da pa da ni da pa ma ga ma innavarill oruvare pole. Now I am going to render the corresponding lyric for the fifth charanam. Mana kanjaranesha kushalarodu vailar somasi mara mangaya karasi kungiliya kalayar ilayangudi mara rivataya kutruvar potpuli shakkiyar satya shirappuliya sherutudaya puhal tunaya kulachirayar கழற்றறிவர் இயற்பகையரெனும் இன்னவரில் ஒருவரே போலே. Towards the end of the fifth charanam, he has very interestingly woven a simple yet profound calculation. Basically, the pattern is a 6-note pattern and it recurs 6 times. Therefore, the total number of notes is 6 times 6, being 36. And each cycle of Adi Talam can accommodate 32 notes. We have 8 beats in one cycle and each beat can take 4 notes. So an entire cycle of Adi Talam with swarams sung in fast tempo can accommodate 32 notes, and therefore to accommodate 36 notes that is required in this particular calculation, we would need 9 beats, and therefore the calculation begins on the 8th beat of the previous Tala cycle, and it goes as follows. Let me first illustrate the calculation in the form of a jati, and then I will sing the swaram and then the sahityam. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Tading ginatum, tading ginatum, tading ginatum, tading ginatum, tading ginatum, tading ginatum. As you can see, we repeated the tading ginatum, which is a 6-note or 6 rhythmic syllable pattern 6 times. Let me sing the corresponding swarams. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sagama gari sasa gari sani sa ri sani dani sani da pada ni da ba ma pa da ba ma gama innavaril. The 2 additional notes of gama have been added to integrate the charanam with the beginning of the word innavaril, which is starting at after 2 notes from the samam, which is an example of the anahata eduppu that I mentioned earlier. Let me sing the lyrics corresponding to the calculation. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Shirappuliya sherutudaya puhal tunaya kulachiraya kalatrarivar iyarpagayar enum innavaril. Again, the greatness of the composer not only lies in incorporating the calculation, but also in the fact that he has chosen the names of 6 nayanars, which are so structured that they fall very seamlessly into this rhythmic pattern.
Thank you, Vidya, for that explanation. As I listened to you, I couldn't help but wonder at the composer's musical expertise on display here. To be able to string together 63 complex names within the confines of Carnatic music grammar, including the raga and the rhythmic cycle, is really beyond words. And I'm sure I'm going to spend a lot of time contemplating about this. But for now, let's pause here and pick up next time on Raaga Rasika. To learn more about Vidya, visit her online at vidyasubramanian.com. Write to us at raagarasika.com. That's RAAGARASIKA.com. Hope you enjoyed this episode. See you next time. Goodbye.
Sachidananda Vallisham Agasti Yeshwaram Aradhayekam Haram Sachidananda